In the universe, there is one rule that every advanced civilization understands. You do not make contact with a species that isn't ready, because the moment they see you, you become their god. And gods, well, they are very hard to get rid of. And these otherworlders, they broke every version of that rule. They made contact. They genetically modified the species. They lived among humans openly. They accepted worship and built temples to house themselves. They gave humans civilization, language, mathematics, agriculture, law, and then they left. You've heard this story before. You just knew it by a different name. Every story has a beginning. This one starts not with gods, not with miracles, but with a dying planet and a metal. Before there was religion, there was a reason, and that reason had nothing to do with faith, nothing to do with worship, nothing to do with God. It started with a dying world and a metal 450,000 years ago, according to the oldest written texts ever found on Earth. A civilization arrived here, not from another country, not from another continent, from another world entirely. Their planet was dying, their atmosphere was collapsing, and their scientists had one solution: gold, not for currency, not for jewelry, suspended in microscopic particles high in the upper atmosphere. Gold can reflect solar radiation and stabilize a planet's climate. We are researching that exact concept today. They were doing it 450,000 years ago. Earth had more gold than anywhere else in their reach, specifically the riverbeds of southern Africa and the fertile waters between two rivers in what is now modern-day Iraq. So they came. They didn't arrive as conquerors. They didn't arrive as gods. They arrived as miners, led by two brothers, Enki, their chief scientist, brilliant, curious, someone who looked at every problem and saw a solution, Enlil, their commanding officer, disciplined, cold, someone who looked at every problem and saw a threat. Two brothers, two completely different visions of what this mission was supposed to be, and a conflict between them that would echo through every religion ever written on this planet. The Bible calls it the war between God and the devil. It wasn't a cosmic battle between good and evil, it was a family dispute. They established their first settlements in ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, cities called Eridu, Nippur, Sipar, Ur, the oldest cities ever recorded in all of human history. And here is where archaeology runs out of answers, because something happened in that region that has never been explained. One day, nothing. No writing, no law, no mathematics, no organized agriculture. Humans living exactly as they had for 100,000 years before. Primitive, scattered, surviving. And then, almost overnight, everything. Writing appeared, fully formed. Law appeared, organized and structured. Mathematics appeared, complex and precise. Agriculture appeared, systematic and efficient. Architecture appeared, with techniques that still impress engineers today. A calendar appeared, so mathematically accurate that we still use its foundation right now. Archaeology has never explained that transition. There was no gradual development, no stepping stones, no trial and error period. The Sumerians themselves never claimed credit for any of it. They were very clear about where it came from. Beings came down from the sky and handed it to them. Their mission was simple: find gold, extract it, save their planet. But mining at that scale required labor. After 100,000 years of brutal labor, their workers revolted and refused to continue. So Enki did what engineers do. He solved the problem. There was already a primate living on Earth, bipedal, adaptable, genetically close enough to work with. Enki took that primate and he upgraded it, spliced Anunnaki genetic material into its DNA, increased cranial capacity, refined motor skills, accelerated language development. Scientists today call that gap the Great Leap Forward, a sudden explosive jump in human cognitive ability approximately 50,000 years ago that archaeology has never fully explained. No gradual development, no transitional period, just nothing. Then everything. The tablets don't find that mysterious at all. They call it Tuesday. The first successful prototype was Adamu, built to work, built to follow, built to last. But Enki wasn't finished. Adamu needed a companion, so Enki built Lilith. And this time, something went differently. The tablets describe Lilith in detail that feels almost uncomfortable to read. Extraordinary cognitive capacity, faster processing than Adamu, more curious, more aware, more present, beautiful in the way that made the Anunnaki Council uncomfortable. She wasn't just a companion, she was arguably the more complete creation, and she knew exactly what she was. When the Anunnaki told her she was beneath Adamu, that she was to serve him, submit to him, exist as secondary to him, she asked one question: why? We were made the same way, from the same material, by the same hands. On what basis am I beneath him? Nobody had an answer. So she left, walked out of the controlled garden into the world beyond it, alone, by choice. The first cognitive being in human history to look at the system designed to contain her and reject it on principle. The Bible mentions her once, Isaiah 34:14, translated as a screech owl, a night demon, a creature that haunts desolate places. That's not description, that's a cover-up. You don't reduce someone to a monster unless what they actually did was too dangerous to remember accurately. They called the first creation Adamu. You know him as Adam, so that's what we'll call him from here. Lilith was gone. Enki had built her with everything he had: full intelligence, full curiosity, the same hunger to understand the world that drove him. She had asked questions he couldn't answer, and when she left, some part of him respected it. But the council needed a worker, not a philosopher. So Enki tried again. This time he took a piece of Adam himself to build her. Her name was Eve. You know this story. Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, the serpent, the forbidden fruit. Most people grew up hearing it the same way, that Eve was tempted, that she gave in, that she's the reason paradise was lost. But look closer at what Adam and Eve actually didn't know. They didn't know they were created, didn't know who the Anunnaki really were, didn't know there was a world outside the garden walls, or that they were built to serve a purpose they never agreed to. That ignorance was the entire design. Enki built that tree himself, not to punish, not to test. He put the truth inside that garden because some part of him couldn't let Eve live the way Lilith had refused to, blind to what she was. There was one rule: do not eat from it. In plain language, do not learn the truth about what you are. A rule Enki wrote, knowing exactly what would happen if it was broken. Then a serpent appeared and told Eve that truth. Where she came from, what she was built for, what the Anunnaki were hiding. Eat from this tree, and your eyes will be opened. Eve ate from it, and then she gave it to Adam. For thousands of years, that serpent has been blamed as the source of evil. Eve has been blamed right alongside him, and Adam for simply taking what was offered to him. But look at what actually happened. The serpent didn't deceive her. He told her what her creators refused to, and Eve didn't fall for anything. She made a choice, and then she gave the people she cared about that same choice. The Sumerian tablets are clear about who that serpent really was. Enki, the same being who built her, who watched her live inside the exact cage he designed himself. He gave her the same choice Lilith had to fight for. And his brother found out. Enlil saw what Enki had done, and it didn't just anger him, it terrified him. Because a worker who understands their situation isn't a worker anymore. That single decision split the Anunnaki Council in half. It fractured two brothers permanently, and it set in motion something that would end with an entire planet underwater. What happened next? That's a different story.